Welcome to Pure Sex Radio, training men, educating women. Are you ready to get real and start living each day in purity? This dynamic program is designed to educate, encourage, and equip listeners with the tools necessary for living a life of sexual purity. Pure Sex Radio brings you the best in mobile talk radio. Listen to real-life struggles, learn how to overcome lust, pornography, and sex addiction, and get serious about purity. Your hosts for Pure Sex Radio are Jonathan Doherty and Stephen Cervantes. Jonathan is the director of Be Broken Ministries and founder of the Gateway to Freedom Workshop for Men. Stephen is the founder of the Hope Counseling Center. Visit us online at puresexradio.com. And now, please welcome Jonathan and Stephen on Pure Sex Radio.
Good day, radio listeners. Welcome to this week's edition of the Pure Sex Radio broadcast. We're glad to have you with us. My name is Jonathan. I'm here with Stephen. Stephen, how you doing?
I'm good, and it's good to be here.
Good. He's got his coffee in hand and ready to go. Well, before we actually get started with our topic for today, I wanted to share with you a resource that we have that we haven't mentioned a whole lot here on the radio program, but it's one of our most popular and most used resources that we have. On our website. It's called our 40-day e-course. And this is born out of a workbook actually that Stephen wrote that's just simply called 40 Days to Purity. And this e-course is a daily sort of devotional email that you get that goes through just really fundamental principles of living a life of sexual integrity. And so it's absolutely free. It's the only thing you'll get in your email from that subscription. So if you just go to ecourse.bebroken.com, again, that's ecourse.bebroken.com, you can get all the information about the e-course and how you can sign up for that.
How many people would you say, if you had to estimate, would have taken the 40-day challenge?
Thousands. There have been thousands. Even in just this last year, there have probably been a couple thousand that have taken it. So,
wow, great.
Yeah, it's a great little tool. And just so you know, it's something that you can go through more than once. I mean, I about once a year I go through it myself just as kind of a refresher, and it helps me focus. So, well, Stephen, we're going to talk a little bit about the issue of brokenness, and why don't you just share with our listeners what we're gonna do this week?
Well, I challenged Jonathan and said, would you map out some steps that helped you, a pathway out of brokenness, sort of clear steps, markers that you could help us understand as on your journey as you walked out. What was a critical insight, moment, thought that you had? And so he said, well, I'm focusing at the beginning about some early steps. And as I was looking at this list, I thought this has really got broad application, because aren't we all struggling with something?
Yeah, we're all broken in some way,
That's right. And aren't we walking out of some brokenness? So I appreciate these steps because they apply to the sexual struggler, but they apply kind of across the board to anybody that's fighting God and holding on to self and saying, my way, I know what's best. Give me what I want.
Yeah. So I would encourage you as we go through this. I mean, please share this, maybe with a pastor or a friend, or just share it with people that might have some connections with people in different areas of brokenness. Maybe you know of some AA groups in your town or something. Maybe this would be something that their group leader would appreciate. But just there's more to it than just the sexual aspect here, because I think this applies to any area in which you feel like you've been trapped, you've been hiding, and then you want some freedom. You want to be able to heal.
Yeah, go. So number one.
Okay, so the first thing that I realized was that really I needed to stop hiding. Some of these things, the things we're going to talk about today, it's one of those things where if you're kind of in a place of health, these would seem like duh statements. Well, of course, you want to get better, you stop hiding. If you've been addicted to something, if you've been, continuing to lie and be secretive, well, of course, the way you get out of this, stop hiding. But for the person like me who was drowning in a sexual addiction, this was a revelation to think, oh, you know what? I have been living most of my life in a place of hiddenness where there are just entire parts of my being that I'm unwilling to reveal to anybody else because I'm too ashamed, I'm too scared, the pain, the loneliness, these kind of things are too much. I don't know what would happen if I really opened up. But I realized I got to stop that.
And it's your thoughts we're talking about, right? Mm-hmm. You've got some thoughts in there that really have to be brought to the light, and no one knows. But those thoughts keep getting worse, and they become a secret, and they become powerful. So maybe if you hide them.
Right. Well, and you know what I discovered? One of the things I discovered is that hiding, a lot of times we think of hiding in terms of, okay, I've told a lie, right? I've told a lie to protect or to hide something, to hide the truth. What I discovered also in my own life is there were other ways that I was hiding. And one of the ways that I would hide was embellishment. It's a form of lying, but what it is it's saying, I'm going to make something really bigger and grander and more amazing than what it really is. Because what that does is that starts to promote an image of me that's not the real me, but it looks awesome.
Well, and it's easier to hide when you are awesome.
Yeah.
You can hide the small parts, the broken parts, right? Because people are wowed.
Yeah.
And don't you think people... when people start talking and they're just, everything is a big wow, incredible, amazing. I go, where's the regular stuff? Yeah. I know there's regular stuff back here somewhere, but everything is like so big and wow and pop and pretty and powerful but where's the regular stuff? And that's what you're talking about, embellishing, right?
And really what it was is it was a way for me to, in my mind, protect the scared little kid inside of me. Because, by the way, I think if we all get honest, we all have a scared little kid inside of us. I think as we grow...
Part of me is shaking inside right now.
Yeah. But I think as we heal and I think as we grow, that kid isn't as, paralyzed by his fear, but I think we all have a little kid in us.
Yeah.
The little kid us. And we're so scared of letting somebody know, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm really not that good at this, and I really don't know what to do next.
And it's like I had this thought, everybody's faking it. And it's real helpful if you just realize, I don't care how confident they sound or how powerful. Nobody's ever done this before.
Yeah.
I've never been 20. I've never been 30, 40. I mean, when you get there, it's the first time you've ever been there, right? The first time you have a kid, that's the first kid. You've never done this before. You don't know how to parent. So everybody's, and I think maybe that's the part we hide, right? Mm-hmm. The vulnerable, weak, scared.
And so I realized that, in early stages of recovery, that if I was really going to get to a place of health, of real, and not just purity, but a place of real health, because I think they're not disconnected from one another, but I think health is more of the complete wholeness of our being. Am I a man of integrity, And I realized that's going to mean the real me has to come out and start engaging life and engaging others and letting other people into that broken place in my life. And so stopping hiding was a huge part of it. And I think sort of coupled with that, one of the processes of stopping hiding is really the issue of confession. I think, confession, I think to put it in real simple terms, I think of confession as simply agreeing with what is true. And I do believe a lot of times, I know that in my life, I resisted confession because I was hiding. I didn't want to actually agree with what was true, because agreeing with what was true is saying, I'm going to put it out in the light. I'm going to say, here's what's true. I'm addicted. Here's what's true. I don't know what to do next. Here's what's true. I'm scared. Here's what's true. And confession is bringing all of that out.
And what occurs to me as you're talking, it's like speak it out.
Mm-hmm.
It's inside hiding. and it's growing, it's confusing, and it's taking on a life of its own. But confessing means speaking it out to another. Say it. Bring out the scary thoughts, right? And put them on the table. Doesn't change anything, but it takes the power away from all the confusion falls away.
Yeah. And I'd say there's actually some real key people that you need to confess to. One that might sound a little weird is I had to confess to myself. Because, see, one of the things that ends up happening the longer you are hiding is you're growing in what we call self-deception. And the best way I can describe it is I had been telling lies for so long that I started to believe that they were actually true. That the things that I was lying about actually happened. The things that I was saying were actually...
Wow. Yeah.
And by the way, that's a scary place to get because the line between truth and lies gets basically eliminated. And then it's a real... it's a terrifying place to be because you're kind of, in a way, through that self-deception, you're losing yourself. You're losing your sense of sanity and reality. I mean, you in fact, you can't really even gauge reality because you're totally self-deceived. So you've got to confess to yourself, to basically say, let's get really honest about what I've been doing, what I've been saying, how I've been lying. And then I think we've got to confess to God, certainly.
Yeah, but what you're saying is interesting because I'm lying and I'm starting to believe my lie and I'm getting so good at selling my lie that I even start to believe my lie.
Right.
And then after a while, lying becomes habitual and automatic, right? Mm-hmm. And then you're doing it automatically, even when you didn't need to do it, you're doing it. And you're saying that sort of gets real blurry. And
it sort of becomes your native tongue. You just start. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, I remember just being asked any question, nothing about me personally at all, any question. And my first reaction was to tell a lie. And when I say tell a lie, I remember embellishment. Sometimes it was a flat out lie. And other times it was, let's just make it something bigger than what it was. It's like, well, hey, where were you at lunch today? Well, I went here, and then, this amazing thing, and just create this story about, getting robbed and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, none of that happened, But it's like it becomes where your initial first reaction is to go toward deception.
Which is like a great storyteller that gets lost in his own stories, right? It starts to blur the lines.
Yeah.
So go back to what you were about to say, confess to God. I had to confess. What did you have to confess to God?
Well, certainly I had to confess the lying. I mean, we're told, one of the 10 Commandments is not to lie, And by the way, 2 of the 6 abominations that God speaks of in Proverbs are lying.
2 out of 6?
2 out of 6. One is to tell a lie, and the other was to bear false witness. So it's like God cares about the truth. Now, one of the things I had to do, I was very scared of God at the beginning of my recovery because I had a false view of Him as kind of always being mad at me. And I'm not going to get into it now, but there were shaping influences in my childhood that really led me to think that God was sort of an angry guy. And so confession was a little bit difficult, but I was so tired. I was so, just shattered. I was just so broken that I realized I've just got to confess all this to God. And the cleansing that came from that was really amazing because I wasn't, I'm expecting if I really unload all this stuff to God, well, here comes the fire and hell, brimstone, and all. And in fact, I was met with unbelievable grace, just the kindness. It was almost as if the picture that I get in my head now when I think about it is it's like a dad who knows what his son is hiding behind his eyes. If you're a parent and you've had little kids, when they are hiding something. And it's like your heart's desire is, you see the agony, you see what it's doing to them, you see how it's trapping them, because it's like they're being trapped by their deception. And as a parent, when you love your child, all you want is, you tell me the truth. Yes. Tell me the truth. It's not about me as the parent, and it's not about, so God isn't looking at it as like, it's all about me and my ego and it's like, no, it's you. You're trapped here, and I want to see you set free from this bondage that you're in deception. So for me to confess to God, it set me free, and I could finally engage my dad my dad in heaven, without this barrier between us, and
that is good. And you could tell the truth, and you could be open, and you could rest, because you knew you were going to get loved back, right? Mm-hmm. No matter what you did, no matter how stupid you were, if you confess, it's part of the healing process, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I think also you need to confess to those that you hurt. This can be a difficult process, and I often encourage people to seek help on this part, because I think there can be some strategies that are more helpful than others in terms of how you confess. In terms of sharing full disclosure with your spouse and maybe with some friends. So, but still, I do believe that if there's going to be healing, not only for you, but maybe even for some relationships, it's necessary that, the stuff in the dark gets out into the light.
So did you have to admit anything in this process? Did you have to just get to the point where you had to admit some stuff to yourself and admit to others? How does that play into it?
I had to admit something that I didn't even realize that I was unwilling to admit. I think one of the parts of self-deception is that you think you are the kind of person that you really aren't. And what I mean by that is, here I am, I'm drowning in complete self-deception. I'm totally self-absorbed. I'm self-centered. The world must revolve around me. I mean, that's the reality of what my life was in addiction. But guess how I often viewed myself? I'm a great guy. I'm a super nice, wonderful guy. I mean, that's part of the self-deception too.
Yeah, that's part of the line embellishment, right? They had created this bigger-than-life superhero.
And one of the things that came along with that was, and you know what? I know how to do a lot of stuff. I don't need any help. And one of the things I had to, in terms of getting out of brokenness, one of the things I had to admit was, I need help. Everything that I have done in this life where I have been the one controlling it, guess what I've done? I've driven it off into the ditch. And so, again, you start to see how these sort of overlap one another. Hey, I need to stop hiding. I need to confess. Part of that confession is realizing, I have really messed things up here, and I don't know what I'm doing. So maybe it would be a good idea for me to actually admit that I need help.
That's good. Because then you have to bring yourself back down to humanity instead of super-sized Jonathan, regular Jonathan, and struggling Jonathan. And it sort of puts you back in place, right? In order, in life. Right, rather than super, and then when you're just one regular guy, you got to ask for some help periodically.
And you nailed it right there. It's really admitting, you know what? Listen, while there may be some specialness in the fact that I'm a human being, I'm just like every other human being. So it's like we're special, but we're not unique. And I know that's not a message that often gets put out there. In other words, in my humanity and in your humanity, you have a specialness because, Stephen, you are you. You're a human being made in the image of God, and you have value. But you know what? I hate to tell you this, you're not unique. You're not unique in your brokenness. You're not unique, really, in your humanity. I mean, because what? There's 7 billion other humans on the planet that are way more like you than not, and you're way more like them than not. And so part of it is sort of that taking you down a few notches. Humility. It's really learning humility and saying, you know what, I not only need to admit that I need help, but I need to admit that I am in a collection or a community that's just like me. And that's why I think support groups are so incredibly helpful.
Well, yeah, but I'm thinking over here, you're saying, look, you're just part of creation, right? You're a created one like the rest of us are created. But I do think I'm struggling with this idea about being unique. Okay, I want to go over that just a minute, because I have this picture that when we get to heaven, there's going to be all these people. Not one of them like any other one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's God's collection of his chosen. And he needed every one of these, It's like chess pieces multiplied or something, or puzzle pieces. Every piece is sort of different than the other pieces.
Yeah.
And so I sort of think there's something unique.
Yeah.
But you're saying we're creation, right? We're created right? We're flesh and blood, and we got males and female, and there's a.
One time I jotted a note down one time, and I exactly get what you're hearing, and I don't want to have it come across as if I'm saying anybody's unnecessary.
Okay.
God purposely made you.
Yes.
So it's not like
for his purposes. Yeah. That's right.
I jotted a note down one time when I was thinking about this, and sort of to just kind of be clever or witty or maybe just silly, I don't know. And I said, the fundamental common thing among all humanity is our uniqueness. So I was
is
like,
we're all unique? You mean, are you saying the sameness of all of us?
The joke was, listen, we want to get out there and say unique, 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 and it's like, okay, that's the one thing that's absolutely common about all of us.
All of us,
so,
yeah, that's good. But what's interesting is I'll never meet another Jonathan like you.
Right.
I mean, on the whole planet, over the whole course of my lifetime, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what he wanted. He needed one of you in the collection that are going to sing praises to him. So anyway, I don't know.
Although there is another Jonathan Daugherty that lives in Florida, just so you know.
If you go look online, that's
right. Yeah,
you're too funny. So what did you have to receive? Because you have
here's
to
the thing,
admit and confess.
Yeah, there's two sides to this idea of help. There's the side of realizing I need help. Then there's the side of actually getting. When somebody offers help, having the humility to receive it. Because, see, sometimes we can come to the place where we recognize we need help, but then somebody says, hey, here, let me show you what really helped me along the way, and why don't you try this? And you go, I don't think that's going to work. And you come with your ideas that you have the answers and all this kind of stuff. And I had to really recognize, listen, I have proved to myself that I don't know what I'm doing. So if somebody who maybe is like ahead of me on this journey offers a piece of advice or help to me, it probably would be wise of me not to just out of hand reject it, because I'm the one who doesn't know what I'm doing. They've got a few more years ahead of me. They got a few more steps ahead of me.
And that's why we talk about mentors, right?
Yeah.
We talked about the older teaching the younger, right? That's the whole point you're making, is people that have already finished raising their kids may have a few good ideas for those who are raising kids.
And I think it means you have to engage things that initially might seem a little weird, like they're not connected to this. Like I remember when I first started my recovery, and I was invited to start journaling. I thought, that's what my mom does. She keeps a diary every day. And it's like, what good is that going to... Because I'm thinking, I need filters. I need to do... I'm real behavioral.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is journaling going to do? And there were so many benefits that came from that. One of the main ones is it slowed me down to think about my feelings, think about my life, think about my thoughts. And that's huge when you're thinking about what kind of decisions are you making regarding your body and your sexuality.
And being more insightful and slowing down, thoughtful.
Another thing that initially kind of stumped me was when in counseling I was invited to go back in my history. And I thought, hey, isn't this about moving forward and like living a life of purity?
Oh, that's
And
good.
I didn't see so many of the connections that so many of my wounds from my past had to why I was doing some of the things I was doing. So sometimes you have to be willing to receive help.
Now, what you just said is very powerful, because we hear guys all the time saying, well, that was in the past.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not doing that anymore. Why do you bring it up? It's in the past. It's in the past. Just go forward.
Mm-hmm. And you know what I often say to
our
those?
story is all in our learning is from, what are you talking about? We have to go back and learn from our mistakes.
And a lot of times what I will tell guys when they say that is maybe what happened is in the past, but what you're doing now is exactly connected to what is in your past. So you think it's in your past, but you're just perpetuating it on forward right now. It's actually right here, right with us right now in the present because of how you're behaving and what you're thinking. And so it's like when you start seeing, wow, there's a connection. You know, it's not like when I turned 18, I disconnected from my child and I'm no longer connected. It's like we're this continuum, we're this continuation of our lives, and it kind of builds on one another.
That's good. What other things did you have to address?
Yeah, one of the other things that had to happen in terms of kind of as part of my steps out of brokenness was really just, I call it addressing the mess. And when you really start peeling back the layers of the things that are part of an addiction, you realize there's broken relationships. There's lots of fear about being known and really being vulnerable. There's certainly I had to admit the fact, man, there's a lack of closeness with God. I may have been a child of God for many years, but that doesn't mean I automatically have a deep intimacy with Him. Shame, anger, anxiety, depression. There's all this mess that's called my life.
It's been postponed while we were in embellishment, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so part of it is, I think of it as just kind of rolling up your sleeves and saying, God, what do you want me to work on now? And listeners, I want you to hear this, because at first, when I started my recovery and sort of pulled the curtain back fully, it overwhelmed me.
Wow.
And the good news is that if you can get around some people that can support you, and when you realize that God is not asking you to address it all at once,
right,
you might be able to get on a journey that's saying, what would happen if I took a little piece today and saw what I needed to learn about that and what I need to do about that, and maybe then a little piece tomorrow, and not get too far down the road. Just deal with what you need to deal with right now.
Which is the real work, right? Which is being present and sorting through, and what am I feeling, and why am I scared, and why do I want to run away, and what should I do that builds me up today? All that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. If you have an addiction, you have delayed doing a lot of work.
Yeah.
And so then when you wake up and you realize all that you've delayed, then you got to catch up, right? And that's the overwhelming part.
And I would say finally that the thing that really that was really instrumental in healing was when I finally understood that what this is all about, what recovery is really all about, is discovering what it means to be fully known and fully loved. That as long as I was in my addiction and my self-deception, I wasn't allowing anybody to know me, and therefore nobody could really love me. They could only love the image of me.
Wow.
And it's like when I started realizing that the sweet richness of life is in being known, certainly by God, but also by being known and loved. It's like, guess what started?
But being known as a struggler, as a human, being as a regular guy, being known at that level?
Absolutely. And that's just it. When you start to be known and loved, you get on this growth journey one day at a time. Mm-hmm. And as I sit here before you 15 years later than when this journey started, there is a peace, a contentment, a joy in my life, and I am not pulled toward those sexual behaviors the way I was 15 years ago.
Are you embellishing this?
No. You can ask my wife.
I thought I'd throw that in there. So you're being honest. You have more peace, more joy, more contentment. You're more present. You're enjoying, even though you're vulnerable, and you're being vulnerable right now, saying, I'm a broken man that has ugly past.
I'm absolutely not perfect, but I'm enjoying life and grateful to be where I'm at. Well, hopefully these have been some helpful things for you, listeners, to just think about your own brokenness and how you might be able to step out of that. We're glad you've been with us here today, and we look forward to having you back here again next week on the Pure Sex Radio broadcast.
Pure Sex Radio is paid for by Be Broken Ministries. Visit us online at puresexradio.com.